Hey, everybody. Apologies to start. I had to cancel the first operations meeting Monday night, but I did want to get this information out. Like I had said, the topic of that discussion was going to be the duty shift survey results that were submitted. I'll start by saying that I made this presentation Friday morning. So if you submitted information after that, your information is probably not reflected here, but pretty confident that the information is pretty consistent across the board. So I wouldn't expect any radical changes over just a couple of days, but okay, here we go. So really what we wanted to do here was, get some information back to you about those duty shifts, talk about some of the common things that came up and some of the concerns that came up. All good stuff. Really appreciate the feedback that came back from this, and then talk about some solutions for these challenges, and then finally, figure out how we're going to move forward and how we're going to jump on board with this program if we choose to do so. So let's jump into that. The good news is there is no question on the benefits of having in-house station duty crews. I'll say this is probably the first thing that we all agree on 100%, which is a great place to start for sure. That we all agree that there is a significant need to do this for several reasons. Hopefully, for most importantly for the public, that requires or demands some kind of service. So certainly that's important, and it should be our driving force here. So when I talked about shift times, I'll say that some of the questions that came up were, when I said 6 to 6, does it have to be 6 to 6? And the answer is no. I, looking back, should have checked a box there for flexibility or something else, or maybe a free comment spot there. But it was just, I was throwing times out just to kind of get some ideas on what those might look like. But clearly overnight was the most common response, was, a 6 at night till 6 in the morning. Which makes sense since the majority of folks work during the day. I got that. I do see this as being flexible. Like I just said, if you get out of work at 5 and need to go home for your family for a bit, I would say that's probably acceptable. And, same thing, if you work at 6 in the morning, you work at 5 in the morning, how is that going to work? So I say it's got to be flexible, but it also needs to be consistent. What we can't have is, a duty crew of 4 people that goes down to 1 person because, somebody got bored at midnight and wanted to go home, or somebody had to leave for work at 5. So we've got to figure out some workarounds there to make sure the shift is actually consistent. It's actually filled. So, whether that is, we go out of service at 5 o'clock in the morning, or, if there's a day person that's coming in for a day shift, can that person come in early, that kind of stuff to make sure we're covered. So, we just don't want to have this system where no one knows what to expect. And if I'm home and expect there's a duty crew in service, so I'm not going to go to a CO alarm or a fire alarm, but there really isn't a duty crew in service, that would be problematic. So we just want to figure out a way to make it consistent is all. I put down here, set days of the week. And I said the Fayetteville model, what that looks like in Fayetteville is when they take in new members, they get assigned a day of the week. That's typically looks like this. It typically looks like, hey, we're really could use some help on Mondays and Wednesdays. Which one works better for you? And they pick what day that might be. How that might transfer to us might look like, hey, I want to do Tuesdays because that's typically, there's no sports that day for my kids, or there's no, whatever's going on that day. I want to pick Tuesdays. And that might work. Maybe I have a set crew that I always want to work with on Tuesdays, and that's our night, or that's our day, whatever that looks like. So I think that's, a possibility. I'm not saying that is the way to go, but it's certainly a possibility. I already mentioned leaving early for work. People got to go to work, of course. So there's things that are going to come up that we need to kind of work around. And then those that work rotating schedules, becomes tough as well. So we already know there's some times where this might not apply to everybody. There were some comments about, I don't really fit into any one of these models as far as times. That's okay. We're just looking for some data is all. What the question here was, what would encourage you to commit to a consistent duty shift? Meals we're by far the biggest, I don't say biggest draw, that's not what I mean, but that occupied 78% of all the respondents checked that box that I want you to feed me. So message sent there, we got it. And the rest of those are pretty equal, whether it was, the LoSAP stuff or whether it was training, they were all pretty equal across the board, but food definitely stood out. And to be honest, I like to eat, so there's no surprise there. So we've got to figure out a good, consistent way to provide for the folks that are going to stay overnight for sure. Not a surprise here. This popped up a lot under free comments, the lack of bunk facilities. Got it. Most of the people that responded to this question said they would stay in quarters till 10 and then go home. I think that might be a good way for us to start, as we are working around some of the sleeping arrangement struggles here at both stations, really. Although many did check the box, I would just sleep in a recliner or a Murphy bed. I'm guessing that came from the younger folks, because I'm not doing that anymore. But this topic again popped up routinely in the comments section. So I do feel that, making appropriate accommodations here for folks really needs to be a priority. There's no doubt about it. If we're going to head down this path, then we have to provide for comfortable sleeping quarters for folks that got to work the next day. I can't think of any other way to be successful other than to do that. So message sent there. Got it. This was interesting. This kind of answers the question of, would we still see a from home response? The goal of this program, contrary to some of the rumors that are out there, is not to eliminate from home response. I don't really have any idea where that started from. That was never the intent. And if it was the intent, I certainly wouldn't have asked this question, but I was curious to see what we might see as a from home response here. The good news here is nobody said I would never respond from home if there was a duty shift. So that's great. Almost half said I would still go to all calls. You can see the fire alarm, that kind of ticks down. And I'm guessing if I put CO alarm, I'd see a similar response to fire alarms. But motor vehicle crashes and structure fires, still pretty high that people would respond to from home, even if there was a duty crew in quarter. So I was curious about that. And that data is not surprising either. This was interesting. This responds to the question of, if I got my training on my duty night, would I still come to Monday night drills? And most of you would not come to Monday night drills. And I get it. And I think probably the reason there is, if I tell my family, look, my night at the firehouse will be Wednesday, it's hard to say that it'll also be Monday. So this will be a little bit of a struggle for us, especially as we, try to do bigger drills, or try to do, if we bring a guest lecturer in or bring something special in for training. So we'll have to work around this a little bit. And this was not meant to be a negative thing. I believe that if you are dedicating a night to be at the firehouse, that you should get your required training on shift. That's why we're here. So we'll have to look at this a little further and figure out how this might affect training, or how that might affect consistency of training, especially in bigger drills. But again, I don't think this is a big surprise here. If I'm going to ask you to dedicate a night, again, I believe you should get your training on shift. And that is how the models are working in Fayetteville and East Syracuse as well. That was one of their big things, was to make sure guys got their training when they needed it. This was the second place that we were in 100% agreement, which is great to see. So far we saw 100% agreement that the duty shifts are important. And the second 100% agreement was that there is value to training with our neighbors on duty. And there certainly is. I can't tell you how many times I get asked this question from both our neighbors and our own members of when are we going to, move over and start training with our neighbors? And the answer is, we can do that immediately. It's just, we need to actually go do it. So this was a good, some good data for us. In the free comments, there was some I'm confused about or concerned about the from home response. And I'm guessing what the deal there was. I don't necessarily trust that just because you say you're going to come from home, that you're actually going to do it. So we would need to police that a little bit, right? We would, especially if I'm one of the people that I'm not going to get up and go on a fire alarm or a CO alarm because there is a duty crew. we need to make sure that duty crew is coming from home and they're actually going to the call. So that would be important. The shift times again came up a couple of times. We're talking about, does it have to be these specific times? So again, I think there's some work to be done there to address those concerns and address those needs. And we'll have to dig a little farther into that. And a bunch of comments on this being a necessity. I agree. I think that, I would love to say this is the way of the future, but it's not. It's the way of the present, and if not the past. We're behind here. Duty crews and in-house crews have been the norm for probably the last at least seven years now in our immediate area, and it's becoming more and more popular because people see the need for an immediate response, and I think people also see the need to be able to provide the volunteer fire service more consistency. Hey, your night is Wednesday, your day is Thursday, and then you can go and rest assured that we'll cover the rest, and you can go be off with your family or at dinner or whatever it is, and calls are going to get answered. And then I put the bunkroom things there several times because that was a very common comment was we need bunk facilities. So I got it. I hear you. And it's certainly a priority. So now what? I just said that the bunkrooms are a priority, but I can't magically make them appear. There are Murphy beds at Station 2. There are some spaces here at Station 1 that I think could be utilized better. But I'm sure I'm not thinking of everything. I promise you that. So if you've got ideas of some ways to be creative here with the space we have, we are kind of landlocked here at Station 1 for sure. And I don't see a $3 million renovation happening at Station 2 anytime immediately anyway. So what are some things we can do right now with the space we have that would help us out? I say start slow. What I mean by that is, I don't think that tomorrow, hold on one second. I don't think, tomorrow we can flip the switch and cover 7 days a week. I wouldn't expect that. But so start thinking about if I had, a group of guys or girls that I wanted to work with, excuse me, what might that look like? So if you want to start selecting your crew, qualified driver, an officer, and 2 firefighters, one of which can be exterior, that's fine. Start to piece that together. Hey, we want to try to do, a duty crew on Tuesday night. And, even if it is until 10 o'clock and then you're coming from home, I'm okay with that. I don't want to split that crew up between stations. So please don't send me a crew that has 2 guys going to Station 2 and 2 guys going to Station 1. That's not really the intent here. We want to be, at the station as fast as we possibly can and then out the door. But so start thinking about what that might look like for you and throw some ideas and talk to your buddies here about what that might look like. Some of the unanswered stuff that came up, low SAP credit, how does that equate to standby time versus call time? Especially if, you do several Wednesday nights in a row and there are no calls. So I'm looking into that right now. I've asked the village to look at some of the laws there and what the possibilities are. The question of will we get utilized more? It's a tough question. And I'll bring this up again under an outside the box kind of thinking stuff here, but the answer to that is probably, although I'm going to guess not immediately. And I recognize the fact that doing a duty shift in Manoa, just for Manoa calls is not exciting. I got that. I'm working on it. And again, I can't say enough that the more we are inviting our neighbors here to work with us every day on everyday calls, the easier that is going to be. If we are not working together every single day, whether it's training or calls, then the answer will be no. We just don't have that trust yet. So it's a work in progress on both sides, and we're going to work through it. So the answer is I would think yes, but maybe not immediately. What if I can't make my shift? The Fayetteville model is you find your coverage. Hey, I can't make it tonight. I need someone to drive, or I need an operator, or I need an officer, a firefighter, whatever it is. There has to be a little bit of accountability here. It can't just be, I don't feel like coming, so I'm going to blow my shift off. There are people that depend on you being at your shift. So we've got to find some avenues to, whether there's a person that's an alternate. Hey, if you can't make your shift, call me. I'd like to do it, whatever that is. So again, there's some work to do there as well. Thinking outside the box. What I just said earlier was, how can we get used more? The way to get used more is to go hang out in Fayetteville until 10 o'clock at night, possibly, or in East Syracuse or DeWitt or wherever where it's busy. I just spoke to both the DeWitt chief and the Fayetteville chief of the day about this and said, what if the ladder, Fayetteville's ladder's out of service right now for a couple more months till the new one comes in. And why can't I get a crew and staff ladder 22 and go sit in Fayetteville and, have dinner with them and train with them and then do calls all night with them. And, maybe at 10 o'clock, we go our own way, go back, or they have already offered, why don't you just stay here for the night? They have bunk facilities. So when I say outside the box, that's what I mean. Again, this is the way to break down these barriers. This is the way to be working together, and it is the way to do more calls, which I think is what we all want to do. The I Am Responding app will be helpful here. I know we don't have that anymore. I'm demoing that again as we speak. And the reason this is beneficial is simply because, right now I can open my phone and I can tell you who is on duty in East Syracuse, Fayetteville, Manlius, and DeWitt. And the missing link there is Manoa. So if we do jump on board with this duty shift program and I'm the East Syracuse chief and I can look and go, oh, Manoa's got a crew in quarters until 10 at night, that does help my decision-making process to use that resource much faster. So, and the last point here says old school Manoa ambulance days. And that brings up a memory for me of doing exactly what we're talking about, but it was specifically for the ambulance. So, we had ambulance crews on every night of the week, and you were on duty and you came from home and you came to the station and got the ambulance and went on ambulance calls. So this is not a new concept. It's just somewhat of a new concept when it comes to the fire world is all, but we have been doing this in the ambulance world for as long as I can remember. So again, not a new concept. So anyway, I say, again, there's some work to do, but what I'd like you all to start doing is start thinking, hey, could I pull a 4-person crew together and try this on a Tuesday or a Friday? And again, I keep saying nights. It doesn't have to be nights. If you've got a bunch of guys that are hanging out, that want to be here on a Wednesday afternoon or all day Saturday or Sunday, there's significant benefit to that. So somebody else mentioned in the free comments, I want to do these shifts, but I don't want to spend the entire shift doing a rig check or rebedding hose. Couldn't agree more. I think training is important. I think getting out to the neighbors is important. I say neighbors, I mean either real neighbors here in the village or neighboring fire departments. I think there's also a task list we can put together of things that need to get done out and about or around the firehouse that people could just kind of check off. So I think there's lots of we could be doing at the same time while these shifts are happening. So anyway, I'm looking for some more comments. If you've got some ideas on where we can house some bunk rooms would be great. And then just start thinking about what that might look like for you as far as a duty shift and more to follow. I'm going to ask some people to kind of spearhead this a little bit, that we got to put some kind of regulations behind it. There's got to be some kind of consistency to it. Maybe a schedule that we can all see, a Google schedule of some sort that we can see, some scheduling software, whatever that happens to be, but more to follow. So anyway, I don't want to drag this on too long, but that was what I planned on covering on Monday night. So as always, any questions, please reach out directly. But other than that, let's start thinking about this and let's give it a go. Let's move forward. So that's all I have for now. I appreciate the time. So thank you.